again for taking the time out of your Saturday morning to
Thanks
come and chat with me. Yeah. So I want to learn, like, I want to know about you. How did you start your EC journey? Did you know about it? Like, did your mom raise you like that? Like, tell me your whole journey on how you got introduced to it, becoming a coach now. Yeah. Tell me your journey.
Well, I definitely was a diapered kid. And my mom was one of those who said that I kind of potty trained myself, which I get that a lot from clients now. And I'm like, oh, grandparents, I love you so much, but that's like not really helpful. And that's not really how it happens. Like they still had some hangover of knowledge and experience from past generations. They just didn't realize they were doing it because no one called attention to it. So apparently, I was standing in my bed at like 2 years old or something, talking away. I've always been very talkative. And I paused and my mom could hear me pee in my diaper. And she said, "Did you just pee in your diaper?" And I said, "Yep." And she goes, "Okay, that's it. We're done with those." And she just took them away and that was it. But when I was in college, I had a friend who was starting a family and she found out about EC from a mom's group. She was doing a lot of more of kind of the stereotypical crunchy type of mom groups that you would think, like baby sign language and attachment parenting and all that. And so one of the parents in the group one of the couples was doing EC with their baby. And they actually made a documentary, which I still haven't been able to find. This was way before you like put everything up on YouTube, right? They handed us a DVD to watch it. And I think it was called Scout Goes Pee-Pee because their daughter's name was Scout, something like that. And my friend her baby was 3 months old. And she said, we're going to use cloth diapers. We're going to, when we hear her pee, we're going to make a sound. And then she's going to learn that means that it's time to go pee-pee. I was dog training at the time as my like after school job. I was working at a pet store and teaching like clicker training classes. And that's so similar to how you train a dog with like rewards or clickers. I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. It was really funny. Of course, once you have a child, you're like, they're nothing alike, but it was some experience. So it totally made sense to me. And in fact, the first time I ever caught a pee was with her daughter in her bathroom sink. She was just like, okay, she has to go, hold her like this, say, psst. And she had a big round mirror in front. And it was so funny because her daughter's face just like lit up as soon as she peed and we were all excited. And I tell people now I call that the first catch high. Like as soon as you do it, you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is so great. This is so easy. So my younger sister was cloth diapered as a baby. And so those were two things I thought I wanted to do when I started a family. I was going to cloth diaper and I was going to do EC. And when I was pregnant with my first, it was about 10 years later, I bought the book Diaper Free Baby, which Diaper Free Baby is an organization that has since been handed over to Andrea. I think her title is the CEO or something like that. But what was funny is in the website in the back of the book, I typed it in and it brought me to Go Diaper Free. So I started, reading the blogs and.
Wait, so how long ago was this?
This was in 2017.
2017. Okay.
Yeah. So I was pregnant and I had my first at the end of 2017. So I read the book, and Diaper Free Baby is a great book. It's mostly testimonials. I think it's really a book written for people who are very surprised by EC. They've never heard of it. They're very skeptical. So it has a lot of testimonials, both of parents who were finding out about it and the reasons why they wanted to try it. One of them, this woman was married to a man from India. And she said, "Oh, your mom must use cloth diapers." And he says, "No, I don't think we used any diapers." And she thought, "Oh, of course you did." And then she's watching a video of a mom potting her baby and the husband hears the sound. He's like, "That's it. That's what my mom did with my sister." So, it was really a great way to buy you in. I was already bought in. And then of course we talked about, I was far away from family with my first parent overwhelm took over, and I didn't start EC with my oldest until he was 4 months old. And part of that was just, I'm the type of person who I can get very paralyzed with the process. Like if I don't feel totally 100% prepared to do something and I'm not going to do it exactly the right way, I'm like, oh, there's no point. I'm just going to mess it up. And of course, we have the society that's constantly telling you, especially as a first-time parent, if you don't do XYZ exactly right, you're going to mess up your kid. So it was just all too much for me. And I hear this story from so many people. And that's one of the reasons I'm such a big advocate for do part-time when you can. Do not put the pressure on yourself to do it exactly right. Do not put the pressure on yourself to do it right from birth. There are plenty of people who can do that and it's fantastic. It doesn't work for everybody. We weren't raised with that. So it's just not easy for most of us. So it wasn't easy for me. I ended up visiting the same friend when my son was 4 months old, and she caught his first pee in her bathroom sink. So it's like a cute little full circle with that. And then we did part-time from there. We moved. There was a lot of, life change happening. I got pregnant with his first little sister, when he was only 8 months old. So they're 17 months apart, almost to the day. And so I had 2 kids in diapers. And of course, I'm a huge advocate now too for get the first one out of diapers before you have the second, because it was almost another year.
Good to know.
Before we used the tiny potty training book from Go Diaper Free. Pee took us like 2, maybe 3 days. He was a little bit more stubborn with poop. He didn't want to poop on the potty. It's super common. So it was about 8 days with poop. And the kid has never had an accident. He was done. He was 28 months old. He was done. And so I set my sights on number 2 and I was like, you're done now. She was a year old at that time. And it took us a few more months. I tried to do EC with her right around 16 months, but she was my go-getter independent kid. She was not having it. She did not want me to have any part in that. So we regrouped, we took a break. We waited for the next kind of holiday weekend when we'd all be home. And we did the tiny potty training experience with her at 18 months and she was done. We waited a little bit longer for nighttime with her. So she's the one who's struggled a little bit with nighttime dryness, but part of that too is developmental. So she's almost 4 now. And for the last, at least year, she's been solid to the point where if she does wake up and she has a little bit of wetness, it's not even on her sheets. She's like, oh, I gotta go pee. And she takes herself. And then I got pregnant with my youngest in January 2021. And that whole year, I just was like, okay, we're going to do it this time. We're going to do it from birth. I love this. I'm really into it. And the coach program relaunched sometime that summer. And I was like, okay, let's do this. I want to be a coach. I think this would be great. I want a way to stay home with my kids anyway. And so I dove into the coach program and actually basically took it while I was doing EC with her, which a lot of people will do. Some people will just buy the coach program because they want to do a really deep dive and they want to use it for themselves. They don't ever want to have a business with it. But I was like, no, I would love to do this as a business. So I started my EC page just to share our journey. It was never intentionally to get coaching clients or have as part of my business. I'm kind of one of those people who has a love-hate relationship with social media, more hate than love, but I've learned a lot. And then as part of that, Andrea was looking for a podcast host right around the time I was finishing my certification. So I auditioned for that and then here I am taking over the podcast.
Cool. I love that. What a great story. Oh my God. So you have 3 kids.
Yes.
And a bulldog. Is that right?
Boxer, close.
Boxer. Okay. Wow. So then that means your youngest he's 2. He's 2 now then.
She's 1.5. Yep. She's 19 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and okay. My birth was super fast, which happens very commonly. It's been faster with each one. And I had a hospital birth. I didn't bring the top hat potty into the hospital with me because it all happened so fast. And then she was born at 2 a.m. and so we just slept. So we didn't start EC with her either at birth. We got home, we got back into the swing of things, I think as everybody does. We just got into the habit of using diapers again. And finally at about 10 days old, I looked at my husband and I was like, let's just potty her. Let's just take the diaper off and see what happens. And I think that's the approach that's best. Just take the diaper off and see what happens. And sure enough, she peed in the sink right away. He had, we both had the first catch high again. And then after that, she wouldn't let us diaper her. I mean, we had a diaper on as a backup, but she wouldn't let us just like use the diaper. She was like, I'm not using this thing, especially for poops.
Yeah.
So she kind of like shoved us into full-time EC, but it worked out really well. And she's been diaper free since, at least during the day, since 13 months.
Wow. That's so encouraging to hear.
It can be done.
Yeah. It's like, I was trying to think when I started EC. Okay. And it's like, I know it's like, as I'm taking the Go Diaper Free coach, Andrea created like this universe with specific language to talk about it. And I know to people who are on the outside who are unfamiliar, they can be a little confused, right?
Yeah.
So even with me as I'm going through this journey, like I didn't put diapers on my son until we dressed him because he was pretty much naked at home all the time. So does that mean I was doing EC? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is that what that means?
I mean,
Like,
in some ways, I mean, if you were doing like observation, you're noticing what your son is doing right before he pees or poops. We call that naked observation. Yeah, we have a glossary, like you said, there's a whole kind of language surrounding it. And if you were trying to help him potty in a hygienic way rather than on himself or on his clothing or in his bed, yeah, you're doing EC.
yeah. Okay. It's amazing. Okay, so and in terms of resources, I actually started with this book, The Diaper Free Natural Infant The Gentle Wisdom of Natural Infant Hygiene by Ingrid Bauer. And then, I recently bought these two books because the PDF, I'm not a PDF person. I like this. I like to take it everywhere with me. Yeah. So there's the Go Diaper Free 0 to 18 months. And then the Tiny Potty training book, 18 months and up. So I have yet to really dive deep into it.
I'm an audiobook person. So I bought the digital packages when I did finally purchase Go Diaper Free and the Tiny Potty training book. I bought them I think if you buy the paperback package, it still like comes with all of it. So I had a driving job. I was an inspector, so I was like driving all over the place, and I just plugged it into my car and listened on the road. And I liked having the book so you could like go back and highlight and kind of like review different sections. But yeah, I like that it comes with like all three, or you have the option of all three formats.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember what I was going to say. So when Bjorn was born, I actually started with a bunch of pre-folds, and I knew I never wanted to use diapers. Like I didn't buy any disposable diapers, and I only bought 6 cloth diapers to use for when we dressed him up. So he didn't, pee or in his clothes. But after realizing he was going through, I bought, I think 2 or 3 dozens. I was washing literally 36 pre-folds. And I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of disposable diapers if I were to use that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
36 per day.
Newborns pee all the time. And I want to be clear, it's not just a steady stream of pee. There are people still, medical professionals still, who believe that babies are born incontinent and cannot hold their urine or feces, which if you've ever been within inches of a baby, especially during, diapering or bath or anything, they're not just constantly leaking fluids. They do have some control. As they grow and develop, it will strengthen just like all the other muscles in their body. But they pee all the time. They pee all the time. Their bladders are tiny. They're nursing all the time. Especially my youngest was a total snacker. She had some oral ties and just was like constantly on the boob. So my mom made a joke at one point when she was helping me. She's like, I feel like if you hold a newborn baby over anything, they're going to pee because they're just like peeing all the time. And I was like, that's why it's easy to start now.
Yeah.
It is. There's more opportunities. But yeah, it can be really shocking to a lot of parents, the expense. I mean, my friend over a decade ago who was having her first baby, I hosted her baby shower and we did a diaper raffle. And that's still a popular thing where there's a raffle for a big prize. The more packs of diapers you bring to the shower, the more tickets you get. And people were bringing like Costco-sized packs of diapers. So when she started EC at 3 months, she still had diapers, which is fantastic. People brought a couple different sizes. Like, it was very kind. But she had all these diapers and she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with these. She ended up donating them. And it depends on like where you shop. Obviously, if you go to Costco or something, you're going to be saving, or if you have some kind of subscription. But the typical national average, at least in the US, is about $1,000 a year on diapers. And when you factor in all the other expenses of having a child, especially if you're not at home full time, if you're factoring in childcare, all those other things, and that's not even including wipes or, diapers created a problem that, of course, they then created a solution to in diaper rashes. So it's not including diaper creams or any other treatments. It's about $1,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
It's a lot of waste. It's a lot of waste. And I know, my target audience is similar to what Andrea describes in the Go Diaper Free. Like, it's like, our audience are crunchy moms who are conscious about the environment and waste and stuff like that. And so I want to get into, you avoid a lot of waste. And I want to talk about the rashes. I have not had any rashes on my baby, and I don't use any wipes. Like, I must say Bjorn's a year old and I've probably gone through 3 wipes, and it's not even for his butt. It's like for me to wipe my hands in the car,
Yep.
And so tell me the benefits and then the myths also. Like, you can kind of get into both about, because even with my mom, like the first thing when I tell our parents, it's like, oh, you're forcing your child.
So a little bit of history. Cloth diapers were commercially available sometime in the late 1800s, I believe. Disposable diapers were invented in the late 1950s, and it was the whole convenience movement with plastics and disposable cutlery and plates and all that. Ditch your dishwasher. You can just use disposable. And they were very unpopular. Disposable diapers were very unpopular in the beginning. And this is in large part because over 90% of US children were completely potty trained by 18 months in the 1950s, done being potty trained. So parents still had that ancestral wisdom of introducing your baby to the potty earlier. In fact, Andrea has on the website and a couple of our blogs and social media, these pictures from these baby manuals from back in the day where you're holding a baby over the chamber pot, catching the poops, at least peas are a bonus, and this was just what you did with your baby. So there was really no need for disposable diapers. It didn't make sense. Moms were not having all this diaper laundry by 18 months. And so what was the point? Pampers hired T. Barry Brazelton, who is a very well-known and respected pediatrician, to promote them. And that started the narrative of readiness. You need to wait till your child is ready to use the potty. Here are the signs. And in some ways, what's interesting is in some ways he was right in that your child cannot reach potty independence until they're capable physically of doing all of the tasks for themselves. Your newborn's not going to walk themselves to the potty or take their own diaper off. Like, that's just silly. So your child cannot technically be potty trained, fully independent, until probably about 18 months, give or take, depending on the child. But what happened is, with all the marketing and the media and everything, is that snowballed into, don't potty train your child too early. You will hurt them physically, emotionally, whatever. And like I said, the diaper companies created these problems that then a lot of them created solutions around, like the diaper rash creams or the wicking diapers. That's a big problem today with disposable diapers, is it disconnects baby from the feeling of wetness. They have this, this instinct, this sort of like reflex that happens when they need to go potty, and they can feel it. It's a sensation when you have urine or feces exiting your body. You can feel it, but they're disconnected from the result of that. So your son being naked on the floor still had a connection to that because the area around him was wet, or his legs were wet, or, his sleep space, whatever it was. And EC taps into that because it's a natural inborn instinct to avoid that. We train babies into diapers with these wicking diapers because they don't feel it. So they're like, great, I'm not pooping or peeing on myself. And then, of course, there's a whole industry that popped up around that with medical professionals working on clinical constipation in children because, they have had this issue with withholding poop because they weren't potty trained until 3 years old. And now they're afraid of the toilet, all of these things. So back to your parents' concern with forcing. I think a lot of it ties into that, but it's just such a silly concept to me. If you sit and think about it, has anyone ever in the history of anything been able to force a baby to do anything?
No.
And, I have so much compassion for everybody because I've been there too. And I still am sometimes where I'll just do things because like, it's the way we do them. But sometimes you just have to stop and go, does that make sense? Like how could you force a child to use a toilet? You can put them on the potty. And there's this idea that, oh, when my child turns 2, if I start getting them to sit on the potty, they will get potty trained. And I'm like, no, those don't have any relationship to each other. Sitting on the pot, they already know how to sit. They can sit on a chair, they can, and then you have this battle of, I don't want to sit on the potty, and parents are confused as to why. Well, because they don't need to. What are they sitting on the potty for? They're not doing anything. They don't have to go right now. And I think maybe, I don't know that there have actually been some real cases of this, but I think people envision like strapping your child to a toilet and force feeding them suppositories in their rear end. I don't know what it is that people are imagining when we're doing this, but anytime I get oh no, you're forcing your child to use the potty, I always just say, that's not possible. I can't force my child to do anything. I am offering them an opportunity to go in the potty. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But my child, every mammal is born with the desire to keep themselves, their sleep space, and their caregiver clean. And I am just helping them with that desire. That's simply it. So that's one of the big ones. As far as I can really quickly go through some of the other big misconceptions. One of them I kind of touched on is, EC can cause medical issues. And I'm dealing with constipation in my youngest right now. And I can tell you, without a doubt, this would still be an issue whether or not she was practicing EC. Like whether or not she was still in diapers, this would still be an issue. It started with diet. When we introduced her to solids, she had a couple hard poops because the texture changes. And from there, it kind of snowballed because it's a psychological issue. She's freaked out. She's worried it's going to hurt. We've dealt with all of the diet issues so that she can, pass easily pass stool. But I don't have control over her. Again, I can't force her to do anything. And she's too young to really understand, like, I know you're afraid, but it's not going to hurt every time. And so sometimes she withholds. And regardless of what I do with diet, that's going to make the poop consolidate in the colon and compact and dry out and start to harden again. So I just keep really on top of it. And, we've gotten a pretty good system now, but she's only going to learn that with experience. What happens with some other families is they, especially in today's, culture of child-led this, child-led that, easy, gentle parenting, parents confuse gentle parenting with child-led. And so they don't often create boundaries. And so you get into potty training. And of course, as a parent, you're worried about your child. You don't want them to be hurt. And you're going through potty training and your child won't poop in the potty. So you're going, well, he has to poop or it's going to hurt him. And he'll only poop in his diaper, so I'll give him his diaper back. And what that tells your child is, if I wait, I'll get my diaper back. And now you have this power struggle. And if the power struggle goes on for too long, you do have a medical issue because your child, I've had even friends telling me she's standing in the bathtub screaming and crying while the poop is coming out because she can't hold it anymore because she wanted her diaper. And again, these are issues that the diaper company narrative created that now there's a whole industry surrounding. And it includes medical professionals and includes all the people that our parents' generation were raised to trust. The pediatrician was God. He knew everything about everything. And in reality, in today's world, your pediatrician gets maybe an hour lecture on nutrition and probably less than that on poo and pee.
Yeah.
Like,
And
unless they
breastfeeding.
are, right, unless they are a specialist, like a urologist or, something like that, they have very little education. And it's funny, like when I was taking my first to well visits, I would get this printout every time, and it would talk about developmental stages, and it would talk about car seat safety, and it would talk about all of these things. This is from Stanford, because I'm in California. And my pediatrician was part of the Stanford network. So from Stanford Children's Health, every well visit every year had a new like 6-page document on all of these things: behavior, sleep, discipline, everything. And as a first-time parent, I was like, oh, that's really helpful, thank you. And then as I started to kind of educate myself, I was like, what business do you have giving me this? This is literally, you've taken a Google search and compiled this document for me. Like, I guess thanks, but also you're not an authority on this. And so there's that generational gap where, we have our parents and grandparents who, like, the doctor knew everything. And we have now where it's like, no, parents and other professionals are super empowered. So you don't need to listen to everything your doctor knows. I have a friend who, like, turned her child forward facing in the car at 20 pounds because the doctor said she could, not realizing it was still safer to, things like that. Like, we just kind of accept. So that's, I think, the biggest area where myths happen with EC, is that we've got these medical professionals who still believe in many cases that babies are born incontinent and you're going to harm your child, you're going to start psychologically harm your child. And then we have our generation who's like, you know what? I trust my instincts and I believe that this is good for my baby and I want to go for it. So thank you for your concern. But if these things were true, literally nobody would be practicing EC.
Okay, let's just say a first-time mom is listening and she's like, oh my God, I want to do EC, but my baby is already 6 months, 7
Yeah.
months. Your clients, or what I've heard is like a lot of parents actually start much later.
Yeah.
Right? Your clients. So tell me about that it's not too late. And
Oh, it's never too late. So, there is a shift that happens at 18 months, which is why you have those 2 books, where your child is going to crave mastery and independence. And so in that case, there is technically a quote too late to start EC. And like I said, my first daughter, my second child at 16 months was like, no, this is baby stuff. This is not for me. So it's going to be highly dependent on your child. It happens earlier for some kids. Some kids are really easygoing and you could go with EC all the way until 21 months. Who knows?
Okay. Wait, so I was okay. So then in terms of the language, I was getting confused then. So you don't practice EC with the 18-month-old. We're talking about the signaling.
So this is what we're talking about. EC is a way to assist your child with their pottying until they can do it for themselves.
Okay.
Potty training is teaching them how to do it for themselves, giving them the tools. If you're practicing EC, often that blends into each other. It's just a natural progression. As your child gets older and starts having interest and ability to take on aspects of the potty process, of the routine, you'll hand it over.
Okay.
And then they'll be wrapped up. When Andrea wrote the first manual, EC Simplified, which is now Go Diaper Free, I think we're on the 6th edition. Mm-hmm. She wrote a section in there for wrapping up, because what she was finding in the EC community is that it was just kind of dragging on and like there was no end to it. Parents were still holding on to ownership of the potty process. And Montessori, like classical Montessori, calls the sensitive period for toilet learning 12 to 18 months. Because right about 18 months, or at least by 18 months, most children want independence. So that's really the big difference between EC and potty training. I like to equate it to feeding. Your baby can't feed themselves when they're first born, so you feed them. And then you introduce solids and you give them tools like a fork and a spoon or one of those little like sauce catcher things, so they can start trying to self-feed. And as they grow and they show this interest and this skill and this ability to self-feed, you as the parent go, oh, okay, you got this. And yeah, they might throw their spaghetti all over the place. So you're like, okay, smaller portions, you manage it still a little bit, but you are handing over those reins. So that's really, we call it two things because EC is parent led. You are assisting your child, and potty training is not child led, but the child has ownership of it. And so like for me at 19 months right now, I'm kind of in this bridge area. So she's telling me pee-pee, and my older daughter, who's now 4 at this age, wasn't telling me anything. She was walking into the bathroom by herself. And I would kind of go, ooh, because she really liked to wear the like leggings. She was very opinionated about her clothes, and they weren't always the easiest to get down. So I would kind of be like, you got this? Okay. And then wait, like hovering outside the door until she was done. And then she needed help wiping. And still at 4, she screams at us, somebody wipe me. She can do it. She just doesn't like to. And then my current 19-month-old, she is yelling at me when I'm like straining pasta, right? Pee-pee. And I'm going, it's right there. Go. The potty is literally right there next to you. I have a little mini potty in the kitchen. I'm like, push your pants down. You can do it. I know you can do this, but she doesn't want to. So she's waiting for me to help. But I'm working on encouraging her to push her own pants down, sit on the potty herself. You know, she really loves the part where we pick it up and go dump it out. She wants to do that part by herself. But she is slowly, little by little, becoming potty trained. I would even say she is potty trained because it's not my idea like, oh, you have to go potty right now. She's telling me. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I have a podcast episode. There's actually a couple that we have, like a blog post and episode on the difference, because it can be really confusing. And like I said, if you're practicing EC from any point, birth, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, it will bleed into potty independence as long as you let it. And that's again why Andrea wrote the wrapping up section. She calls it passing the baton. And there's what she calls the building blocks of potty independence. They're all just the little steps. You need to be able to know that you have to go potty, find the potty, get on the potty, get the clothes out of the way, you know, the whole 9 yards. And like wiping is usually the last holdout, which I think most parents are familiar with. And again, that's a little bit of how much you're letting it go and how much they're actually capable of.
Yeah.
And like my husband is, you know, he hates poop messes, so he would rather do it than have poop all over hands and having to wash them the whole thing. And so that's more of like a parent hang up than an actual skill or ability on the child's part. But yeah, as far as starting at any time with EC, you can start at any time. You can start the potty learning process at any time with your child. It just needs to be developmentally appropriate. Potty training that we do at 18 months is not developmentally appropriate for a 6-month-old, but EC absolutely is. And there are some modifications because typically around 6 months, they start to get mobile, which I'm sure you remember. And so things can be a little bit more tricky, but really there's never a bad time to start EC. If you want to start it at walking at 12 months old, that's a great time to start. So the book takes you through, and I love it because it's broken down into sections. You just read the section that applies to you. You don't have to read the whole darn book. And in fact, she put all the philosophy and the background and everything at the end so that if you don't even care why EC works, you just want to know how, it's front loaded for you. Here's the steps. 1, 2, 3. Just do that. And it really is that simple. I think that's one of the big hangups people have is like, it can't be that easy. I've heard horror stories about potty training. Like, it can't be that easy. Take the diaper off, and there you've started.
This whole journey of me being a first-time mom, it's so helpful to just talk to another mom who's done it. And as you were speaking, even talking about the feeding and eating, and right now, I actually and as you're talking about that, I haven't really let my son play with his food ever since we started getting ants. So now I'm just feeding him as he's trying to grab my spoon. I'm like, no, like I don't want you to spill. But as you're talking, it's like, oh my God, I really do need to let him do this because he wants to feed himself. I think we're gonna have to just go outside and eat.
You find modifications, and that's the thing. We, as parents, you do get into these like traps, right? Where you're like, no, I need to control this, and this around it. Obviously, ants is like a huge concern. We have them here too. It's a big concern. Trust me. But yeah, it's just finding those little solutions. Like, you know, I realize as a parent, if I want my child to learn this thing, I have to let go of it. And maybe I can't completely let go the way they the magical they thinks I should, but I can find something for myself that can work where my child can still find those skills, as far as the wiping goes. Like, again, my husband really doesn't love the kids to wipe themselves, and I have 3 kids and a dog, so sometimes I'm like, it's just faster and easier, let me take care of it. And then I have to remind myself and stop myself, okay, how long do I really want to be wiping these butts? Okay, here you go, fold the paper like that. And when I can, I'm gonna take the time to teach that. I can't always do it. That's just the reality of it. But when I can, maybe you can't have every meal outside, but when you can, your son will benefit from learning the textures and play and seeing when I do this, what happens, as much as we're like, oh, but I think it was either before I became a mom or shortly after. One of my sister's friends has a child older than my oldest, and she was saying, oh yeah, we only give yogurt on bath night. And I was like, oh, that was genius. Just give them messy stuff when you're going to throw them in the bath anyway. That's perfect. So you just find your way around it. And it's the same with EC. Part-time EC is still EC. Some people need to use diapers. Some people can't just be focused on their baby at all times. A lot of people would hear this and think I was insane to say, oh, 3rd child's the one I'm really going to concentrate on full-time EC with, because that's another myth, is you have to be sitting there staring at your baby the whole time. No, we really, even full-time EC, you catch about 50% in our modern society with carpets and cars and the whole 9 yards, right? We did not catch every single pee, and especially not when she became mobile. We were pretty much only catching poops. We lost those for a little bit, it goes all over the place. And I can sit there and be stuck in, no, I have to do it this way. And I think that's where a lot of people, when Andrea wrote her book, were missing the handoff, because they're like, no, I do this. I, as the parent, do this. Or you can go, okay, my baby's changed now. What do I need to do to kind of adjust things here? And that's one of the biggest questions I get, is like, oh, EC was working. Now, I don't know what happened. They're like, we were catching everything at 5 months. My baby's 7 months out. I don't know what happened. And I go, look at your baby. You have your baby's not the same baby now. Your baby's a completely different baby. You're going to need a completely different strategy. And in our, again, in our society that's telling us you have to do parenting this, and this way. And if you don't do it this way at this stage, you're wrong, or it's broken, or whatever. I think EC for me was such a breath of fresh air, because it's like, I can do it part-time. I still get all the benefits. A diaper saved is a diaper earned, as my friend would say. And we can just go with the flow. We gave up the breakfast time pee. She did that one in the diaper because I'm dealing with other kids. When she was a stealth pooper, I just tuned in a little bit more when I figured it was going to be time for a poop. And that's the thing, as a parent, they will change. As soon as you get used to something, they will change. So you can be stuck in a rut and go, I have to do it this way, and be all frustrated, or you can roll with the punches. And I think that's a big difference. But EC is so flexible. There's so many different ways to practice it. If you caught 1 pee a day, you're still practicing EC.
That's a great reminder. Because I feel like, we get the trap that we're in, like we're either all in or all out. So I think that's a great reminder.
And that's my trap, right? I said, I have to do it this way, or it's not the right way. And it's all gonna, I catastrophize in my head. It's all gonna go wrong. And so I try to remind everyone of that. Don't think I'm up here on this pedestal being like, EC's so easy. Of course I get frustrated, and I have to remind myself of these things. But that's one of the reasons we have this community. We have the book, we have the online community, we have the group of coaches. We all need those reminders. We all need those mom friends who are like, honey, you're doing great. Just don't forget about that. It's so great. Yeah. If you have a private yard or an area somewhere you can let your baby roam, my summertime reminder is always, potty trained naked is not the same as potty trained. We do wear clothes. Because I know in a lot of cultures, I have friends who are Vietnamese, and they say, oh, we visited my mom when he was 3, and he ran around naked all summer, and he was potty trained. Bada bing, bada boom. And it's like, that sounds great. And at some point you put clothes back on your child, and they had to learn the clothing manipulation and all those other building blocks. Right. But yeah, it's a great way to not be stressed out as the parent about the misses, about the mistakes. Because another one of my flags that I always fly is everybody can learn from a miss. And that's, sorry for your listeners, a miss is an accident. We don't call them accidents. A catch is getting it in the designated receptacle. If you didn't, it's a miss. If your baby starts to pee and you get the last few drops in the potty, that's the little catch. But parents can get really hung up on the misses, especially during potty training. They're like, oh no, if he has wet pants, it's all wrong. It's all falling apart. That's an opportunity for learning. And if you are too stressed out and too hung up on cleaning pee off of a floor, you're not going to be able to learn anything. So get outside, get them out, naked bottom or in just cotton underpants or something that you don't care about getting wet. Let them run around and teach them there where you're relaxed and you can learn as well about their timing and their, potty dance and whatever you need to learn, so that when you come back inside, you've already got that confidence and you don't have as much of those hangups anymore. So yeah, use what you have at your disposal. Get creative.
I have all these potties and I bought other potties that weren't, by Go Diaper Free because I didn't really educate myself. I was kind of like, oh, it's a potty, but it doesn't matter. So, okay, I'm just going to show you what I have. And you tell me like, oh, this is way too tall and he
potty roundup.
Yeah. Okay. So
to be clear, I have at least a dozen potties and seed reducers all over the house. Like I'm like a klepto with the potties. I go to a thrift store and I'm like, ooh, $5.
Yeah.
So let's see them.
Okay. So Bjorn is 1 year old. Okay. And
yes.
I found this on Facebook Marketplace, thought it would just be great. It's a pretty tall one.
Potty chair. Okay, so that's
potty
the
chair.
OXO potty chair. And we call it a potty chair because it is bigger. And so pluses and minuses, it just kind of depends. There are as many potties as there are babies, and you're going to find what works for you. And the same potty is probably not going to carry you through from birth to completion.
This is too tall, right?
It's huge. So it depends on your kid. My children are monsters, so that's not too tall for them. By the time they're walking, they're like, oh yeah, I can sit on this, no problem.
But
so you want to look at their feet should touch.
Okay.
Their feet should touch. Okay. The ergonomics of it, their feet should touch. And for you as the parent, it's in two pieces. And that's because it's huge. So you can take the bowl out and you can do whatever you want with it. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like that that's the whole piece. It's got the support on back. So if they're going to arch, they're not going to like fall off the back of it, but you can also just stick it up against a wall. Doesn't really necessarily need the back. It can be helpful to have the back on it as a handhold for learning to mount the potty. A lot of babies like to do the like side kick, like you're mounting a horse. And I just, for whatever reason, that like just comes naturally to them. They'll put their foot in it at first. They'll learn to get over it. So when they're tall enough to sit on it with their feet on the ground, it can be really helpful. It has that back. They can put their hand on it to stabilize. They can kick their leg over. And yeah, it has the handle on the back. Not all of them have that part, but that's super helpful for you too as the parent to move it around.
Good to know. I wasn't sure if I wasted
So those
my
are
money.
pluses and minuses of that one.
Okay. The baby Bjorn.
Baby Bjorn is a short potty, no back, because probably they're just going to be able to like stand in front of it and squat. It does have a little handhold on the back for you, Mom, which is great on the bottom.
I do want to share, this was the first potty I bought, and because I wasn't educated with the Go Diaper Free, I thought I would be able to take this out, put it between my knees like a top hat. However, it doesn't work. It's too shallow. It won't hold between my knees. It just keeps. So that's why the top hat is great. That I wish I had.
And the top hat has actually I have one here. Ooh. So I have two. And this one, you guys, I've had since 2017. It's got the rubber band, which you can use or not, but that helps with the slip. Right. And it is small and round, so it can fit kind of between your thighs. So some parents do use that. Okay. And I'm sure you probably thought that because you read it somewhere. Like someone was like, oh, just take the.
It didn't work. It didn't work for me.
Honestly, I have trouble sometimes holding this between my legs, depending on what seat I'm in. Like we're all built different. It can be helpful. Some kids are so obsessed with this. It's got the flat bottom. They will literally at 1 year old sit on this. On the floor, which is fine. I mean, if they want to use that, it's fine, but it's got ants in it.
Also, okay, so what are your thoughts on this one? The baby
So
Bjorn.
it's a good short potty, but again, it's probably best for walkers, I would say. I I tend to recommend at about 6 months, when they're like crawling off the potty and want nothing to do with it, putting them on a seat reducer where they can't get off.
What's a seat
And
reducer?
the seat reducer is the little thing you put on your toilet at home. It makes the seat smaller so you don't have to hold your baby on the potty. You can just sit in there and let them go. And so when they're wanting to escape the potty and pee on the floor right next to it, one of the strategies is putting them on a seat reducer. And I have a bunch of those, and there are pros and cons to all of that too. But at one point, they're gonna, especially when they start to get to that point where they want responsibility, they're gonna arch, they're gonna scream, they're gonna try to dive off, or sometimes they're tall enough and they will jump off, like my kids. And like the counter's right there, so they just like grab on and like pop off. It's yes. They usually will do better with something like this at that stage when they're walking and they don't want you to put them on the seat reducer anymore. They want it to be their idea. They can't get on the big potty themselves. Having something like that in the playroom is great because it's just right there. But again, it doesn't, for that one, it doesn't like really matter that it has because it's so small, that it has the two pieces. And that's, I think, one of the reasons Andrea created the mini potty. So I have the mini, I think you probably have one there too.
Yes.
But the mini potty is shorter if you hold them side by side with the baby Bjorn. Oh, look, they have the same color.
Yeah.
It's shorter, and it's got a really high pee guard here, which the baby Bjorn does too. But this is also top rack dishwasher safe. You can just throw it in there. It has a handhold. It's recyclable, number 5. And so this is really good for like crawlers, because they're probably not going to be able to get up on that baby Bjorn.
Right.
But I still have one of these in my car, and my 3 and 4, so she's almost 4, and my 5.5-year-old will use this. And the only difference is, especially like, it doesn't matter if you've got a boy who's circumcised or intact, or a girl, like kids pee every which direction. Both my girls pee straight out, so they will miss. It doesn't matter how high it is. They'll miss the pee guard sometimes. So it's a little bit of like, sit back, lean forward, put your legs out, but they still use this, and it's just nice and easy to pick up and rinse out and dump. And you've got one piece, and it's really portable. Some people, if you have a massive diaper bag, will fit that in there. You can also usually fit a top hat potty in the diaper bag. Or some people on the go will just take the insert out of the baby Bjorn, the white part, and stick that in the diaper bag. And that's the thing, though, it doesn't have the flat bottom. So like the top hat potty, a kid could put it on the ground and like sit on it and be pretty stable. But the white one, it's a little tough. So yeah, there's a summer infant and a baby Bjorn potty chair. That's the same thing, like 2 pieces that I have. I have the Potette Plus, which is a seat reducer that the legs can fold in, and it can be a mini potty. You can buy disposable or silicone reusable liners for it. So it's just like a bowl that sits in it and folds over the lip, and you can fold that up and stick it like in a wet dry bag, or dump it out, or rinse it out, whatever you want to do. And like there's 1,000,001 different potties. What Tiny Undies Andrea created with Tiny Undies was 2 that she thought were kind of missing, because like I said, for every age and stage and every kid, something else is going to work different. I also have potty seat reducers that have ladders attached to them, so that you can climb the ladder onto the big potty, because some kids are really obsessed with the big potty. Some kids will want to use this till they're 4. You just don't know. So, but in general, most people with a newborn are going to be able to use the top hat at some point, and that's going to be really helpful for them. It always comes with the cozy, so you don't have a cold bottom. The tiny potty, you can buy a cozy with. I recommend this for if you've got some resistance or you live in a cold environment. That can be really helpful.
Okay, good to know.
But at some point, your child is going to learn that the toilet seat is cold.
Okay, yeah, right. Unless you're, in Japan,
unless you have a heated one or something.
Yeah, exactly. With the Toto one. They have Toto seats. When should I buy the seat reducer?
If you're not feeling like you need something different, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But when people hit resistance to the mini potty, like you sit them down and they stand up and walk away, and then they pee on the floor 3 minutes later, however long, 30 seconds later. having a seat reducer can be really helpful. And I always have to be careful with how I say this because I get trolled online all the time. If you put them on the seat reducer and you back up, they probably won't dive off. Probably. This depends. Obviously, like really tiny babies, like 6 months, sometimes they don't quite have that like self-preservation instinct yet. So you need to stay there. But if this is I've been using the potty, it's a behavioral thing. I don't want to sit right now because I don't want you to be the boss of me. Then typically what you can do is sit them on the reducer and back up enough so that you could still like lunge forward and catch them if you need to. But they're not going to be like reaching out for you because then they're too sort of unstable. You kind of use that instability up on the high seat reducer to your advantage. With some kids who really, really need the privacy, you could walk out of the room. And if you're not right there to grab, or if you're not, even sometimes being far enough away to where you could come in and catch them, they're still like, I know you're going to catch me. I'm going to lean forward. So sometimes you need to walk out of the room and give them that privacy. Every kid is a little bit different in this, but it can show up as early as 6 months that they want privacy. That's an instinct. And if you're really nervous about it, you can put pillows around the bottom of the toilet or something, but my kids, we have like the counter with the what do you call it? The toilet paper roll holder. And we've taken the toilet paper off the holder because obviously babies. But they'll still like grab the little side of it and like wiggle themselves off the seat reducer and just walk away. So that for us has only worked for a limited amount of time.
Okay,
Yeah,
good to know.
If they're also obsessed with getting on the big potty, they don't want to use the little potty or they're walking away from it, and they want to get on the big potty themselves, you can find some combination of step stool and seat reducer or something that has the combined ladder with it. There are 1,000,001 products out there.
Wow. Okay. I'll have to look those up.
Yeah.
Well, so with my EC integrating to potty training journey, and it seems like as I go through, Mighty Networks and the feed, the Go Diaper feed, I see a lot of, like the resistance part, the resistance phase. And that's for me the biggest, I don't want to say obstacle, but it is kind of an obstacle. I don't know what to do.
Frustration.
Frustration. So for the past few nights, I logged what happened and the time, and I wanted to share with you, like,
all right, let's troubleshoot.
Okay, let's troubleshoot. Okay, well, let's just talk about last night. So 1 a.m., Bjorn wakes up and sits up crying, and I do know he has to pee. So I take off his backup, which is a cloth diaper. And deep down, I know, he ain't gonna want to sit on the toilet or anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go pee first. And then he starts to, I'm holding him, I'm hip carrying him. He starts to pee a little bit. I'm like, I know you gotta go then. And so then I try to like kind of carry him over the toilet, and he's just like, wow, like crying. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. I know you don't want to do that. So then I like try to, like, I take him like to stand in front of like the shower. It's in front of him, and then I'm kind of like making him stand and holding him, and I'm just letting him like stand and pee as he's crying. And it's like, do I try to find a way for him? What was that right? Was that wrong? What,
you do whatever works for you. And I think letting him pee in the shower is definitely a reasonable solution.
Okay.
As long as that's aligned with your family beliefs.
Yeah. Like, well, so the good news was I'm glad he woke up and cried, right? Yes. That means he was telling me.
Yes, that was his signal. I need to pee, Mom. Yep. And as far as nighttime EC, just to clarify on that, you don't have to practice nighttime EC. Nobody has to do it. We always say, do whatever gets everybody in the family the most amount of sleep, because obviously that's a commodity. It's a really important thing. But some babies like yours and mine, and it changes throughout their development, won't let you not do it. Like you said, woke up crying like that. We went through that at about a year too. Like she usually didn't wake. If she was waking in the middle of the night, she usually wasn't crying, but she would wake up mad, or she would wake up, want a nurse, and then not be able to get back to sleep. And that was my cue. Like, oh, you need to go potty. We need to take care of this. And at the time we were using a backup at night. So if she used it, it wasn't that big of a deal, but I could tell she was not getting rest. And it sounds like he fully woke up. So you could let him pee in the diaper, but then why? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. At that moment, I was happy I wasn't as tired. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm going to take you out.
So I've done a variety of different things. And again, there's really no right way, but there are a couple different things you could try. When you say holding him over the potty, were you holding him in the classic EC squat?
I was trying to.
And it's hard at that age. So I'm having to do this right now if she does start to hold her poop in for like a day or more, where I have to like get the crooks of her knees basically like over the crooks of my elbows and kind of like bear hug her and keep my chin on top of her head so she doesn't buck. And I'm not hurting her, right? I'm very gently but firmly holding her, and she's trying to resist and she can't, so she relaxes, and I just go and try to keep my nervous system calm. It's super hard.
Is my son crying because he's fussy from waking up in the middle of the night, or is he just still crying because he woke up crying, so now he's just like what is like psychologically?
Whatever you think it is as his mom is probably right.
Oh.
Like if you're having this like worry that it's because he has to pee, you're probably right. If you're thinking like he was startled by something, you're probably right. It's so nuanced.
Okay.
And it does take some troubleshooting. So a couple things, there was a stage for us. This was more in like the 6 to 10 month stage or so, where she was mad because she wanted to eat first. She was like, screw you, I'm hungry. Don't potty me. And I had the backup on. I just kept the backup on, and sometimes we missed it. But most of the time she would hold it until she was done eating, and then we would go and potty.
Like at nighttime?
You said, huh?
This is nighttime.
This is nighttime.
Oh.
I would nurse her and then she would potty. You said he was starting to pee, so it sounds like he was at that point where like he had to go. And so babies will at varying stages cry when they're pottying just because they're just mad.
Okay.
Right? It's not hurting them or anything. They're just mad.
Okay.
Newborns cry because it feels weird. You know, they're like, what is this happening to me? Or because they're trying to figure out the organization of their muscle groups. Like you have to relax the sphincter at the same time you're bearing down with your abdomen. So it's a whole coordination that they have to learn. So while they're learning that, sometimes they cry. With your son, another thing that I ended up doing for a while, because we did, starting at about 7 months, use a seat reducer. And I had one that I honestly don't think is available anymore. It's a Fisher Price. It's really curved. I think baby Bjorn has a nice curved one too that Andrea likes. And it's got this like handle on the back of it that kind of serves as like a back so they can't arch and like bang their head on the toilet. And I would actually kneel in front of the toilet nursing her while she was peeing. Because the only thing that would get her to relax and stop screaming and let out the pee was a boob in the mouth. And you can do this if you have a high counter, like I do. I have a big counter in my bathroom on the vanity. You can do this facing you with the mini potty. So that's another reason this one is kind of helpful. You can have them sitting on it facing you with a boob in the mouth. I know not everybody wants to do that. And I've had clients or people write in or call in being like, how do I stop doing that? So yes, everything you start as a parent, sometimes you're going to have to like wean off of. But with my husband's schedule and the other kids in the house, rather than having a screaming baby, you know, this is our third, it was just easiest for me to like pop her on the seat, stick a boob in her mouth. Yeah. I could literally like put one hand around her, lift her up, like blot her bottom with the toilet paper and just go back to bed.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. And so what are your thoughts on standing urinals?
Every kid is different with that too. Some kids see dad or big brothers standing and they're like that. Same thing with the big potty. They're like, I have to do that. I'm not going to do anything else. And they do have these cute little, one like looks like a frog and there's like a spinning thing in it. And it can help with aim. But for the most part with boys, we tend to recommend having them sit until they're potty independent, partly because the sensation to pee and poop can be very similar.
Okay.
And especially if like your listeners are like, my kid's 2 and we need a potty train, like that, start out sitting. If sometimes you have to enlist dad and big brothers and be like, for the next month, we're all sitting on the potty. Thank you. But the standing urinals can be really helpful. And especially like you have kids that have spent time outside and really want to stand and pee, and you bring them inside the shower, the standing urinal. Again, if it works for your family philosophy, the whole point of potty independence is here's our family rules. Here's how you're going to follow them. If your family rule is all the boys are allowed to go outside and pee on the tree, then you have the pee tree,
Okay.
that's fine. But if your rule is we pee in the house and that's it, here's your urinal since you won't sit.
Okay.
But just, obviously kids have varying degrees of success with aim. I have a friend with a 7-year-old who still gets it everywhere. My son, since 2, has been able to, get everything in the potty. I don't know.
And so, okay, that was last night. So then this morning, he woke up and rolled up to sit. He didn't cry. And I was like, okay, I know you have your morning pee. He not happily, but he didn't cry when I put him on the potty.
Mm-hmm.
So was that crying thing just like a nighttime thing?
It could have been, especially with starting to become a pattern. It could have just been a nighttime thing. Is he still nursing at night?
Yes.
So yeah, you can try nursing first.
Okay.
And see, like, just either leave the backup on, nurse on the potty. It could, it's really hard to tell. Sometimes with their sleep cycles and their, changes, it can just be like disrupted sleep or some kind of sleep regression. I'm not a sleep expert by any stretch of the mind. But I always wonder too, like, are they having nightmares? Like, what's going on in that little brain? We'll never know. But crying at night is normal. It's not, letting them go potty won't always stop the crying. Just like feeding them won't always stop the crying, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like being flexible and figuring out what's going to work for your baby and your family. Keep in mind too, especially at a year, we can get stuck and this is what I'm talking about EC dragging on too. We can get stuck in those patterns as parents, like, oh, you like this. And we're like, great. Now I have something consistent for me because I like that as the mom. And then they change. So my daughter went through and is kind of, again, going through a point where she does not want to pee first thing in the morning. She can hold it and she's happy to just kind of like wake up and let the juices start flowing. Both my older kids now will wait at least an hour before peeing in the morning. Me, I get up and I'm like, pee time.
Yeah.
So your child's process and preferences will change. And anytime you're just like, I don't know, is the time you need to kind of like step back and just let it happen. You have a backup. It's a tool. Use it for what it's used as, and see tonight, leave the diaper on, see if offering the breast first is going to make things go smoother. If he's more willing to potty afterwards, if you need to break out the old top hat or something again and like pee him while he's nursing, whatever your level of coordination will allow. Some people can do that. I could never nurse and potty a baby at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. And so at what point, because he can walk,
mm-hmm.
and when actually we went to Bozeman and stayed in a hotel room, I put his baby Bjorn. No, actually, yeah, I didn't have the tiny potty yet, but I took his baby Bjorn, put it in the bathroom, and he actually walked to the bathroom, didn't
Mm-hmm.
sit on it, but I was like, do you have to pee? And then I put him on, and then so it seemed like him standing right next to it, he went. But like at what point, like in the morning, is it that I do just pick him up, plop him, or should I be like, oh, let's go together? Like, because he can walk still, he can walk now, it's okay to take him if he's fine.
It's always okay to take him. You may start meeting some really strong resistance at some point. It's kind of like the feeding thing, like you're talking about with you feeding him.
Yeah.
Like you could feed him, or like you suggested, you could take him outside and let him do it. So you could keep taking him to the potty. And I found myself, even at 19 months, I still do that a lot. But what I've started to do now is say, and I don't recommend this for everybody because, all kids hit what I call no years old, where everything's a no.
Uh-huh.
But every morning she'll say pee-pee. I'm like, oh, do you have to go potty? And then she'll go, no. And I'm like, okay. And I just believe the no. And I wait because I'm going to let her learn, right? That when she says no, I'm going to honor that. And if she pees herself, then she meant yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, again, I don't recommend that for everybody. Andrea always says, don't ask if your child needs to go pee unless no, like always
Uh-huh.
means no and yes always means yes. And again, that will change. But we usually, like, she can climb out of bed herself. So she climbs out. And if she says pee pee, because I'm trying to get out of that habit of taking her myself, I'm trying to hand over that baton actively right now, is I'll say, okay, let's go. And I'll just point and I'll show her that I'm going to go with her. Like, I'll come close behind her or next to her, but I try not to lead the way now. And that's just for me.
Yeah.
If it's working for you, because I was doing what you're doing.
Because I
Probably.
know it. Yeah. If I don't take him, he's going to pee on the bed. So I do scoop him up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was doing what you're doing until probably at least 17 months, where I was just like, oh, morning, let's go. And I still sometimes will pick her up and put her on the potty because I know she needs to go. And we're like trying to leave the house or whatever, but for the most part right now, I'm waiting for her to tell me and then going, okay, let's go, and trying to lead her to the potty rather than take her. For the past couple months, she was telling me and I was taking her. And like I said, kids are so different. My now 4-year-old would never tell me. She would just go. But my baby right now, my 19-month-old, is telling me because she wants me to take her. So they're so different. She wants me to, and I'm doing it. And I'm kind of like feeding into that. It's the same as like, come wipe me. I'm feeding into it. And I, as the parent, like, if I want to hand over that baton, I can actively do it. But like you said, he's going to pee in the bed. If you don't take him, you don't want to change the sheets. It is your house. Just know that at some point you might start to hit some resistance with that. And also, like, in a month, try it out. Instead of taking him, say, okay, let's go, and see if he gets out of bed before peeing the bed, because he's never going to be able to show you his skill unless you give him the opportunity. Okay. Right? So you just have to make the decision of like, okay, we're going to do this for another week, and then next week we're going to try it again. And if he pees the bed, we'll do it for another week, and then we'll try it again, and just kind of set these little reminders for yourself. But we all fall into those traps.
Yeah. And I just have a couple more and then we'll wrap up. And so at 1 year, does my I think we talked about it even on the coaching calls, because you have monthly coaching Zoom calls, which is amazing. And yeah, so when he's going and it's a miss, am I still supposed to prompt, or maybe that's not the word. So when he's peeing, am I still supposed to be like, oh, pee pee, that's a pee pee, or is that I'm past that? I shouldn't do that anymore.
You definitely want to be using language. You're past when you should be using sounds.
Okay. No more I don't do any more
no
sounds.
more sounds.
Okay.
They will, like my 19-month-old takes her baby to the potty and she goes pss, 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 and it's really cute. But yeah, you should be telling him what you want him to tell you.
Okay.
When he has to go pee. So I say potty, so that's what my baby says. And she tries to sign it. So the sign language T, she kind of goes like this. So you, as soon as they start to get some kind of like language development, you should be telling them what you want them to tell you. And you can do what you're doing is the observation of like, oh, you peed on the floor. And that's great if you totally missed it. If you see him starting to pee, grab him, stick him on the potty, or vice versa. Grab the potty, stick it under him, sit. Because some of them will like stop peeing completely once you pick them up. And then when you sit them down, they're like, no, I'm done, and then they're not done.
Yeah.
So if you need to, just calmly and swiftly, like bring this up behind the calves, sit them down, and then walk away. This is the thing that a lot of parents have an issue with. If your child is seeking independence and you try to sit them on the potty and they arch or, get up and run away.
Yeah.
You literally need to, first off, there's already pee on the floor because he started peeing, right? So it's just a little bit more to clean up or in a different location. You sit him down and you literally turn your heel and walk away. Pee-pee goes in the potty and walk away. And it's so hard to do the first couple times, but you have to remind yourself there's already pee on the floor. If he gets up and pees more on the floor, I'm just already cleaning up pee on the floor. But if he stays on that potty, I just taught him something. I reminded him that pee goes in the potty. I showed him by walking away that I trust him to do it. And I'm giving him that privacy and independence. Okay. So it's kind of like all in one fell swoop. So yeah, if he starts to pee on the floor, I would still try to catch it in the potty.
Okay.
That's really, the potty training book is basically your whole EC experience condensed into about a week. That's what it is. is that rather than doing it for your child and then slowly passing off the baton, you're doing it simultaneously. You're showing them where it needs to go by putting them on the potty and simultaneously passing them off that baton. So if your son was 20 months and you were having the same issue, that's the exact same advice I would give you. Sit down, pee goes in the potty, walk away. This is your job now.
I have never walked away yet.
Yeah, if he's telling you, Mom, I don't want you to decide when and where I go pee. Okay, that's fine. You're still going to put it in the potty. It's your job now, but you're still going to put it in the potty. And that's that disconnect when parents think, oh, it's child-led. I have to let them decide. No, you're the parent. You decide. They do actually need, seek, and thrive off of those firm boundaries, but you have to also let it go. And we say, and I meant to say this earlier when you were asking about this, whenever you meet resistance, see what you can teach. So I don't want to sit on the potty. Okay, well, can I teach you to get on it by yourself or get to it by yourself, whatever it is. It's more relevant because there's 2 phases usually around crawling mobility, like 6-ish months, and walking about a year. Those are the 2 most common times for resistance. It's more relevant at a year, but some things can still be done at 6 months. If you're meeting resistance to something, try to teach. Like if he's taken his back up off himself because he doesn't want to wear it anymore, we're switching to undies or loose, elastic top pants and showing how to get it off when it's appropriate, not just like ripping the diaper off and running around.
And so when we were outside on our deck, he had a naked bottom and he just started peeing, but I didn't have a potty. It was in the house. And so it's kind of like, oh, you're peeing. Oh, you're peeing. Like, was that not, I think
that's great. That's helpful. If you don't want him to pee on the deck, if you're wanting him to pee over the side, I would have moved him and then oh, pee-pee goes in the bush. Whatever. But yes, reminding them, look, you're peeing. You have an advantage because your son has been EC'd. I don't know when you started. I think you said, but I don't remember.
Well, he was diaper free at birth.
Right, at birth. Right. So he still has that connection. When you're potty training and doing the naked teaching, you do sometimes have to help your kid reconnect that if they've been in diapers. If your baby is 18 months and has always worn disposable diapers, they've never had that feeling of being wet. You'll see them look down and be like, oh, what's happening? You do sometimes have to kind of help them. Oh, you're peeing. Look what's happening when you had that feeling in your body. Your son still has that. So it's good to observe and say, oh, you peed, and then follow it up with the rule.
Okay.
Pee-pee goes in the bush. Pee-pee goes in the potty. If he's in pants, tell mama next time, I'll help you get it in the potty. Whatever is developmentally appropriate for them. I know we've been talking forever, but if you wanted me to, I realize I can quickly touch on if you want a list of general benefits of EC, because I know we talked about a lot of the misconceptions and myths and that sort of thing.
Yeah, let's go through that.
The benefits of EC. One of the biggest benefits of EC, it's called elimination communication, is an added avenue to communicate with your baby. From birth, your baby's trying to tell you a whole bunch of different things. I'm tired, I'm cold, I'm hungry, I have to pee. And we miss that one a lot in diapering culture. So having an extra avenue to connect and communicate with your baby is so valuable. I've heard this from tons of parents who have diapered their first or second child, and then now they're on baby 2, 3, or 4 and practicing EC for the first time and saying, wow, the connection I have with my baby is just next level. And I can attest to this too. Even though I did EC with all 3, I started at the youngest with my 3rd, and it's just different. It's special. And I think as a parent in this crazy culture and world that we have, feeling like you're more in tune with your baby just gives you more confidence in general. So you've got confidence, you're helping your baby with their hygiene. A lot of us will say, giving your baby dignity and respect, that they don't want to be soiled and they don't want to be wearing it. The savings, we talked about that a little bit. The savings, not just financially, but environmentally. You can cloth diaper all the time, but you're still using water and surfactants and things to clean those out. So being able to save diapers and wipes and creams and all of the other things that come with it can be really valuable from both an ecological standpoint and a financial standpoint. I mean, the fact that there are a lot of third world countries and non-industrialized countries that don't use diapers should speak a lot to that. What would you do? In 2020, suddenly the stores went out of diapers. What would you do? So having another way to care for your baby is just so, so beneficial. Despite what some of the medical professionals will say, you can avoid a lot of medical issues. You can avoid things like UTIs, which my second born did have a UTI at almost 3 months. And that was really scary. And it went better than it ever could have. And we knocked it right out. But nobody ever wants to go through that. If you have a baby who you can get a urine sample from without a catheter, just think about how tiny a baby is. And if you've ever been in the medical professional, the little teeny tiny catheters they have for babies, that's still a huge struggle to get in them. You can open them up for infection. God forbid something happens, you're able to get a pee sample from your baby. That is so, so valuable. That's kind of like one of the fringe just in case benefits. But in general, health, you're not going to deal with potty fear when it is time to wrap up. If you're practicing part-time EC and you want to put a button on it with potty training, your baby's already been introduced to the potty. You already have a language and a culture around it in your family. So you've made your job easier and made the learning easier on your child as well. So those are just some of the top ones. The book has a whole big list of them, but those I think are the ones that are most relevant to what I've seen people asking about.
Thank you. And so do you do consultations and one-on-one coaching with parents?
I do a little bit. I'm super busy with the podcast and everything. So I don't tend to do a lot of one-on-one. I do have an Instagram. It's the Potty Mama. And it will link to my Go Diaper Free page and everything there. But I do a lot of just like little troubleshooting there on Instagram. It's just kind of like my way to give back. People will send me a message. I'll do a little bit of troubleshooting with them. I'll send them a link or two. And then we do have a coaching community. You can go on godiaperfree.com. You're going to go to resources and scroll down to where it says find a coach. And there are coaches all over the world. I know you're becoming a coach pretty soon. I'm so excited to have you on board. People practice lots of different ways. Some of them have local groups, which really was what it started out as. But then after 2020, we all kind of expanded virtually. So there are virtual calls. We have a group here in the Bay Area, the Diaper Free Collective. That's a group of like 3 or 4 coaches that have gotten together, and they do monthly Zoom calls where it's just troubleshooting, getting together, talking about EC and potty training. And so it's on there on the website, and you can find, like I said, people all over the world. Yeah.
What's one advice you want to share with a first-time mom?
Oh, there's so much. My best advice would be that you are this baby's mom. You, not anybody else. You can absolutely overwhelm yourself with information if you want to, but most of it's not even going to be relevant to your baby, and it's just going to add stress to you. So find your peace, find your heart, and listen to that. One of the most valuable things in motherhood and in EC is trusting your intuition. Here in the US, we have a culture that tells you that it cannot be trusted, but being able to tap into that is the number one thing that is going to save you everywhere. In every aspect of parenting. If you think your child's sick, if you think there's something developmentally going on, it's you. So find your voice, find your heart, and just trust it.
Thank you, Nicole.
Some of us, it takes till the 3rd baby to really believe that and do it. But you know what? You can get there.
Are you going to have a 4th child?
If it were up to my husband, yes, but I'm still on the fence. We'll see.
Okay. Thank you again, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Emily. I appreciate you having me on here.